been fighting a long time, and we have all lost so very much, so many loved ones gone. But you are not alone. There are pockets of resistance all around the planet. We are at the brink. You have no idea how important you are. If you're listening to this, you are the resistance.
Ave Maria Stella, Dei Mater Alma, atque semper Virgo, Felix Steli porta.
Hey, welcome everybody. Steve with Sense of Fidelity. I'm coming at you on the 30th of April, 2020. Social distancing with Jason Craig with Fraternus. He's actually an old friend of mine and a couple about 2 hours west of me. If I'm on the Eastern Front, he's a little bit behind. He's the backup. Jason, how you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm glad to be your backup, Steve. I'm doing well.
Jason was one of the first guys that my brother and I met when we went to Prince of Peace. And he comes up and calls us weird trash because we were inviting people out for pizza and beer.
Yeah, I think, what is that? That's what Joseph Pierce called it. Those are the glad trads. You want to hang out with the ones that laugh.
Yeah.
Right.
The
laughing
I think
trad.
we asked you to come out for a beer and pizza after Mass or something. You're like, what?
Yeah. Didn't you leave and make me pay the bill or something? Or,
Yeah, we got hooked with the bill because you guys ran out.
We had to change a diaper, man. It was important.
So, folks,
Yes.
if you hear anybody say you got to change a diaper, they're leaving.
That's right. It's like going to buy.
I kid. So, you're doing
Hold my kid. I got to go buy a pack of cigarettes here. So I'm just joking.
Is that Elvis? So, Fraternus, you've been doing this for how long now? What is it?
Yeah, it's over 10 years now. Been working with Fraternus.
So what about it? What is it? Is it just a publishing company?
It's a strange new age cult. We give out diamonds that gather energy together and make it so you get rich.
I could use some diamonds.
I mean gems. No. What are they? Crystals. Fraternus is a little bit hard to explain. It's really simple. It's just men mentoring boys. But the reason it's hard to explain is in the church, you either have like this hyperactive division and endless multiplication of ministries, right? Mm-hmm. There's youth ministry, young adult ministry, married young adult ministry, men's ministry, women's ministry, men that might want to become women ministry. So obviously, there's certain things we need to acknowledge, and we understand why, whatever your opinion is of the way modern youth ministry has taken shape, overwhelmingly people have looked at the problem and go, all right, we're losing a lot of youth, so we need to get them together and do something about it, which makes a lot of sense. We need to do something about it. But I think a lot of times we get rolling with our strategies and our ideas and what we do, and we don't stop to think, is this really in line with, not just something vague like church teaching, but is this really human? I mean, what exactly are we doing? Why are we doing it? What's the true human need embedded in us by God that we're trying to fulfill? And are we doing, is it kind of, what's going on? So Fraternus, the main apostolate that people would think that we're for is for young men, because if there's any group of people that the church is just hemorrhaging, it's young men. I mean, whatever your opinion of the man Christ or the vocation Christ and all, it really starts in that we lose our young men at such a young age. So that's the target. And if we're thinking about this in a human level, who is it that forms boys into men, right? It's men.
I was going to say MTV.
MTV, you're so old. Steve, that's so 90s. Come on. I actually don't even know if MTV's still. I don't know. But so all right, we're losing young men. So the strategy that we often use is, all right, let's hire a young guy who gets them, and he'll be able to reach them because we can't, right? We can't reach them. So then we get this mantra of we've got to reach the youth today. All right, that's a good thing, but the way it often takes shape is a division from the family. It doesn't have an integration with the family, and it is men that form boys into men. That's who does it. That's how it happens. And we all nod at that. It's like, that's an easy thing to say. So, you might be sitting down with a pastor or whatever, and and it's like, well, boys, any man who's serious about his faith, he can point to other men, priests, laymen, brothers, whatever, and say, without those guys, I wouldn't be where I am today. I mean, that's all the way back from Paul and Timothy, Christ and his apostles, is just that we need mentorship. We need guidance, But what is, people will nod, yeah, I get it. And you just simply say, all right, when does the average Catholic boy get that? They're shuttling off to all kinds of things, sports, all the normal litany of busyness. Mm-hmm. And then we smack a youth group on Sunday night when the family should be home together. And then at the youth group, we have a bunch of young adults running a co-ed environment of games and skits and talks, which might be great, okay? I'm not opposed to games. I kind of like a skit. I don't mind a good teaching or talk or whatever. Heck, you might want to sing some songs. Go ahead, sing your songs. I just don't do it in mass, but sing your songs. But that's not formation into manhood. That's not what that is. You don't form men into you don't form boys into men by putting them in a co-ed environment, and they need to be with men. So Fraternus is basically just providing the framework for boys to be able to be mentored by men. So the way that we kind of switch the paradigm is, well, first of all, Fraternus does not start it's not a boys youth group. It starts first with, hey, if you've got a problem with your boys, you got a problem with your men, mm-hmm. right? If your boys are leaving the faith in great numbers, it's because your men are failing. So the first thing we've got to do is, who are the men of the parish? Do they know each other? Do they have Christian fraternity amongst themselves? Because if they don't have a culture of fraternity with themselves, then they can't bring boys into it. Because the paradigm shift that we try to do is, instead of saying, how do we reach boys today? How are we going to reach? That's not the problem. You know where they go to school. You know where they go to church. You know where they live. If you can't reach them, you can't reach anybody, right? And that's a silly question. How do we reach youth? They're right there. I mean, I'm reaching him. There he is, right? That's not the problem. If they're not growing into men, the problem is they're not reaching us as men, meaning they're not joining us. Why? Because there's no us, right? So what do? I mean, think about what boys do where they go to find meaning. They don't go, everyone says, oh, I got to go find out who I am. Nobody does that. They find a group to belong to. Mm-hmm. They find a community to belong to. Everyone does that, mm-hmm. whether it's a sports team, whether it's the gay pride club at their college, gangs. Whether it's whatever it is. The question that comes up in adolescence of who am I going to be is another form of that question is, where do I belong? Mm-hmm. Right? And where I belong is where I get we like to think we're self-made people, but we're not. We live and breathe as relational beings. That's how God made us. So where I belong is where I learn who I am. So the reason boys have to go find somewhere else is because the church is communicating to them that the church is for women and children. And if you want to become a man, you got to go look somewhere else. Right? And a youth group, by definition, is not going to form boys into men. I am not saying all youth groups are bad. I mean, I just watch the tomatoes, okay?
We'll edit that part out and put it as a commercial. Jason Craig says all youth groups are bad. Click here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of times people, whatever their form of their conversion was, whatever that toehold that God's grace was able to work through, they tend to think, therefore, that is the best infallible thing ever. And a lot of people had a conversion in a youth group because it was the only thing. A lot of youth groups operate at lame duck parishes, and it's the only decent teaching going on. and you typically have a lot of young adults that are zealous for the faith and they're serious. I know we can poke a lot of holes in it pretty easily. Trust me. It's sometimes it's goofy and silly and immature and all that, but generally it's good intentions. That doesn't mean it's good, right? All around. So Fraternus is, I mean, structurally speaking, it's meetings with curriculums and things they're going through. But the ultimate context is, first, you got to have a group of men that understands that them as men, their job is to pass on the faith to the next generation, which means bringing them into their fraternity. I hate to sound self-promoting here, but I wrote a book about that, about what a rite of passage, how boys enter manhood. And the fact is, you've got all societies throughout time, forever, even the church, they reach over and they pull boys out of the world of women and children, and they put them in the world of men. Because even the most liberal, politically correct newscast in the world still says, for example, a bomb went off in the Middle East and it killed X number of women and children, right? Because women and children are in a different category from men. Men are, they're essentially, only priests can be men. I'm sorry, only men can be priests because only priests can be men. Men are sacrificial. We are pawns, right? We can die. We should die first because we're priestly. But it's also our job to pull boys out of the world of women and children so that they can join us, learn the skills, the art, the mannerisms, the culture of men. And we're talking in Fraternus in the context of being Catholic, because if we leave them with women and children, they become childish or effeminate, right? They're not going to learn how to be men from women and children. But overwhelmingly in the church, just like in society, we have submitted the boys over to the women and children. I mean, and let's just, we could easily go, how many public school teachers are women? Overwhelmingly, right? But so Catholic schools too. Hey, let's hit those trads where it hurts. The homeschool movement is an overwhelming matriarchy. Yeah. Now, moms are doing something they've never historically done. Quick disclaimer, we're a homeschooling family. We do this. Mothers have never been the primary educators alone, meaning curriculum, teaching, administration, all that of the children. We're doing it now because we're in a historically weird situation. We don't really have other people we can trust to do that. So, and the home is a natural place of education, even if mothers aren't naturally that sort of academic teacher. But they're doing that, and we do that. It's great. They need to do that. It's good. But what I've seen over and over is the boys in the homeschool world, because it's an overwhelming matriarchy, we don't realize how much we're creating passive, inexperienced wimps because they're still in the world of women and children. I get these homeschool catalogs, and the editorials up front, everything is written to moms. It's like I don't even exist as a father. It's like, moms, you know how when you're trying to enjoy your coffee and your kid doesn't get calculus, we're going to here to help them. Hello, So anyway, I mean, overwhelmingly, we have, as Anthony Eslin says, we're in the first time in history, the last 100 years or so, is this experiment of having boys under the care of women through the period when most boys would have been joining the men in some sort of work or education or boarding school or something. We've never historically had a moment where boys lived most of their day, every day, tied to the apron strings, right? You've never heard the phrase mama's man, right? If you belong to mama, you're a mama's boy.
Yes.
Right. And there needs to be a certain separation. So anyway, sorry, I'm rambling.
No. I remember Harrison Buckner, the Super Bowl champ Kansas City Chiefs kicker, who's a fan of the channel, by the way. He was mentioning that in the EWTN thing that they did with him, that he looked at Islam during high school or college because it was more manly.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, the thing is, the loss of men to religion is not a religious, like universally religious problem. It's a Western Christian problem. Lots of forms of Islam, Hindus, Eastern religions, the men are, overwhelmingly, are the religious it's like they're the ones in the inner court praying. It's our job because we're priests, right? And we've got this experiment now. I mean, if 80%, and I don't know. I mean, obviously it's going to be different in parishes that are exclusively or the extraordinary form or something. But even there, in general, that 80% of people that work in and around the church in catechesis are women. So I'm not opposed to women. I married one. I love women, right? I love one woman more than all other women, my wife, right? It's not that women are bad. It's that women can't give what they don't have, and they don't have masculinity. Thank God, right? We got enough of that.
Yes.
And we need mom, right? So like in my book, there's 2 chapters on why mom is super important to the formation, because if we want gentlemen, we want good Catholic gentlemen, and that was not a plug for Sam Guzman. I do like Sam. I'm just joking. But if we want Catholic gentlemen or gentlemen Catholics, then they need the gentleness. It is now. We need the gentleness of mom and the manliness of dad, right? That's how you get gentlemen. And right now we're just getting a lot of overly gentle non-men, right? So
do you have your book with you? That was the title of it.
It's called Leaving Boyhood Behind. Yes. Can I get up? Is that allowed in an interview?
Go ahead. Yeah. We're very unorthodox when it comes to stuff like this.
I'm not sure that's a good vocabulary word to use on a Catholic channel. Non-conventional.
Poor choice of words.
Leaving Boyhood Behind. It's our Sunday Visitor.
Okay.
And there's actually, we did I was doing a talk and EW10 said, hey, you want to come and do a show on that? And I said, no. And they said, well, how about we come to your farm and we'll do a show there? I'm like, that might be more agreeable because I don't know if you mentioned this, but we have a dairy. So those cows have to be milked every day. I can't really leave easily. So they came here and we did a show and it's published as a program online that you can go through. And it's, so it's leavingboyhoodbehind.com. But that's a book and like basically a video walkthrough of the content. But the book, basically, we look at the wisdom of rites of passage, right? And that's easily, please don't misunderstand me. That can be some cliche, stupid stuff like, man, I'm just going to go take my son and we're going to kill a lion and he's going to poof, he's a man, right? It's just because it gets sensationalized, but the phrase is actually an anthropological phrase. I mean, it's a study of man. And we know that the church has no fear of science, right? So, but she has a particular interest in anthropology because if it's something true and a true need of man, then it's something that God has put in us, right? Because we're created in his image. So taking a serious look at a rite of passage. So right in front of the book, I give a quote Cardinal Sarah in his warning about people trying to imitate a rite of passage. Because we don't have a culture that has rites of passage. We should just admit it. That we tend to do stupid, sensational, machismo nonsense. And we really need to take a sober look at what it actually is and how it actually happens. So that's what it's about. So anyway, I want to make sure people don't think it's not a new idea. It's no novel, 3 easy steps to make your wimpy homeschooler a man. It's just not that easy. But it is a serious look at what's in it. What does it mean that he's created us male and female? And what does it mean that he's created us boy and man? Because there's a reason we have 2 different words or 2 different things. And how do we make sure our boys become men? That's what it's
before the age of 45.
That's right. Well, it doesn't happen by then.
I'll put everything underneath for the show notes so people can click on. But I remember we were talking about this years ago with the Obamacare thing came in, and Jason had a great line about the Don John of Austria. So at the age of 25, he was fighting the Turks, leading the Navy, and now at 25, you're on your parents' insurance.
Yeah, the story, I'll never forget the moment. And this is, it's like those little things that you're trying to, because in what I do, I'm trying to define, a lot of people know there's a man problem, a man crisis, right? I'm defining it as a maturity crisis, that these guys actually aren't men, and that's the problem. And The reason they are men is they never became one. And the reason they never became one is we don't have a culture that respects, harnesses, allows for the truth of masculinity, which is why we have these extremes of, as that one essay put it, wimps and barbarians. You're either a total passive wimp or you're a brute. But anyway, the story, Obama in his first campaign was speaking to like thousands of college students. He's like, under my plan, you're going to be able to stay on your parents' insurance till you're 25. And they're all like, yeah. And they go nuts. I'm like, does anyone want to grow up? I mean, does you just keep mooching on your parents, never leave home,
I saw an article called the Peter Pan syndrome.
The what?
The Peter Pan syndrome.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Grow up. And the thing is, though, and we fathers, we've got a lot of fault in this because we now equate becoming an adult with sinning, right? Mm-hmm. Adult beverage, adult movie, adult language. And then as men, we communicate that, what it is to be a man is just to be worried and pay bills and work. And so we make masculinity unattractive. And then we tell them, and we as a society also communicate, well, to grow up is to be able to be free to sin, right? Mm-hmm. I can have adult beverages and watch an adult movie. So that's why we have boys now that they're like, why? They just indulge in their flesh and get in vice and sin, because why would I want to grow up and get a job and be worried all the time and be a jerk like my dad when I can just sit at home and watch porn all day and adult movie? I'm an adult, man. I'm drinking an adult beverage. I'm watching adult movies. What do you want? What do you want me to do? Get married so I can get a divorce like you did? And marriage looks unattractive. Having children looks unattractive. Having a job looks unattractive. But, these are all actually paths to salvation and maturity and actually fulfillment, right? He would seek to preserve his life and lose it, right? But we don't communicate that.
You were also a big opponent of kids teaching the parents.
Yeah. Well, yeah, kids should not teach. I mean, yes, I have things to learn from my children. Yes. Blah, blah, blah. I also, you might be referring to, I really don't like peer ministry, that they call it. And I don't like the strategy that we use, which is, all right, it's basically using the kids to reach the family.
Right.
So we know, for example, and I'm a good, solid priest that will do this. We know, for example, that a lot of people leave after confirmation. Mm-hmm. So we push confirmation back and make them come to class after class after class. And the hopes is that maybe the parents will stay engaged, the whole family will stay engaged, the kid will stay engaged. But that's just dangling a carrot of failure, and just keeping them going. I mean, we're not recognizing the problem. If tomorrow at a parish that said, you know what, we're losing most of our youth after confirmation. You know what would work immediately? I mean, within a year, total reform, is if the priest got up before Mass, after Mass, and he said, I have relieved our entire catechetical structure of our parish. Not because they're bad people. They were good people. They were trying really hard. In fact, it's not their fault. It's your fault. You parents, I'm sick of it. You're the primary educators of your faith. But let's be honest with ourselves. You don't take that seriously, and neither do I. Because if I did, I'd be making sure you were prepared to teach. So I've let everyone go. If you want to impress grandma and have your kid confirmed in First Communion and all that, I have curriculums in the back. You will all be administered. And because I can't meet with all of you, I've cleared my calendar. I've quit the nonsense committees I'm on. And I will be meeting twice a week. I have 2 windows open. I'll be meeting with every father in the parish so that he can explain to me the piety of his home and how he catechizes his children. And in 6 months, we'll have an assessment of both the father and the child and see if they're prepared for confirmation. And if they're not, better luck next year. If you put that weight on the fathers, what would happen? Either they'll go ahead and leave the church.
I was going with option A on that one. We're out of here. We're going down to our...
Well, I think a lot of them, though, if you gave them a rousing too, your children's salvation should be your number one goal. what in hell are you thinking about that where you're not even thinking about this? Are you going to heaven or hell? And what about your children? Mm-hmm. Eventually, they'll be under your roof and you won't have a lot of control. But right now, they're under your care and you are the primary educator. What are you teaching them? So give them this route and then say, and it's your job now. Mm-hmm. It's your job. And then you can have youth groups with pizza parties and it's no big deal because the youth group doesn't have on its shoulder the entire burden of forming the entire human person. Mm-hmm. I mean, you've got youth groups that have taken on their mission statement sounds like priestly formation. Well, we see to the human, intellectual, moral, and spiritual, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, really? You're doing everything in 2 hours a night on Sunday when I should be at home eating dinner.
If that happened, you'd have a more manly parish because all the effeminate ones would run out.
Yeah, you would. And
I think all the people that play. I mean, I talked about this with a friend of mine the other day. Say, I like those kind of priest sermons, or yell at me in the confessional if you want to. I'm not going to go crying outside. My brother. My dad was a Marine. Our coaches they didn't kiss your backside. I mean, I wanted to play for Bob Knight for crying out loud. No, you can't take a kid to a coach anymore without the coach worrying that he might get sued because he said something mean.
I mean we know. I mean this is kind of old news, but I don't know why it doesn't get through our head that the harder it is, the more men are drawn to it.
Yeah.
Right. Because we're made for sacrifice, for greatness, and whenever you make the faith easy, and it just doesn't work. I mean, it never has. And you look at the priests that are popular with men, super challenging. I mean, they're challenging, and it's not for its own sake, right? It's not because like being gruff is cool. I mean, it's because the truth sets us free, right? I mean, it's not that we like it because we're kind of machismo and we want our priest to be machismo like us. It's that no, I need a kick in the ass. That's what I need.
Yeah.
And because once you come out of boyhood, the constant temptation is to go back to it, right? Where everyone takes care of your needs and wipes your butt and makes your food and does your laundry for you.
It's soft.
It's soft. You want to go back to it, which is why we men, what we do, and it's natural and native to so many cultures and us as people, we challenge each other. We it's like we kind of grade on each other and we run a little bit faster than the next guy. You can look at it as barbaric or whatever. It's not. This is how we stop. And it's not just becoming soft. It's that we're falling back into failing to be the priests, right? Failing to offer ourselves in sacrifice and love. Because love is not soft. Yeah, we don't want everyone loves the St. Paul, 1 Corinthians 13. It's read at every wedding. Love is this, love is that, love is that. At the end of that, a lot of people don't read the rest. He connects it, immediately with being a man. He said, when I was a boy, I did the stuff boys did. But when I became a man, I put those things away.
Yeah.
Right. So to love is to be a man, and we need challenge to be able to love. So I think if you were to challenge all those fathers, I think overwhelmingly, in fact, I'm gonna push back on you a little bit. I think a lot of times we think that these men in the pews, they're soft and wimpy and all that. I think the reality is nothing is being asked of them. So we'll say, literally in one side of our mouth, we'll say, parents are the primary educators of the faith. The father is the head of the family. And in the very next breath, and catechism will be on Wednesday night, taught by Susan or the parish council, right? If a father is truly the primary educator, right? I'm not saying they shouldn't go to catechism class with father or sister or moms or whatever, but that's a supplement. The overwhelming education, the moral and spiritual weight of your children's formation is on the shoulders of the father. Yes, of course he shares it with the mother in the ways that are proper to them in their different roles. But how many men are just not asked? They're just, and I think it's us keeping the responsibility from them, right? It's not that they don't want to do it. And this goes back to why Fraternus exists. A lot of people would nod this whole conversation. Yes. Oh, yes, I agree. Good point there. Man, that was a zinger. But our actual lived experience in both spectrums, from average parish lame duck USA to the tratty world of matriarchy homeschooling, we really don't take the father seriously. Mm-hmm. So I think if we took him seriously and stop at the same time, we tell him this is your responsibility, and then we take it away from him, we can't do it. It's a contradiction.
Yeah, I remember being in a parish just north of Columbia, and the priest was doing something like that, talking about we need to, because the priest was bringing me in wanted me to be the full-time youth minister, and I ended up telling him to take your $30,000 and build a better parish than this. It was terrible. Get yourself a better liturgy and fire the guitar guy, and good grief.
Yeah.
Call me later. But the guy sitting in front of me he's got his arms around his wife there. He's got his legs crossed, shorts, golf shirt, and he's just nodding. Yep. You need to get in that youth group. I can hear her behind me.
Yeah. You just said. I mean, I remember it hit me. So here's the confession of a former youth minister. Right, I was in youth ministry. As a Protestant, I was involved with Young Life, which, not to get into the whole history of youth ministry, but essentially Young Life invented youth ministry as we know it today. It was when you think of like young adults and frisbees and guitars and skits and good talks and all the good. Young Life actually began only doing that to the unchurched, right? So this was a means to reach those outside of the church. And we're talking, outside of the ecclesial community of the Protestants. So that later got imported and used in the church, in Protestant church. We started doing the same things to the churched. And then the Catholic Church went, whoa, gosh, look at what the Protestants are doing. Let's do what they're doing. So then they started doing, and of course the bishops caught up with their documents, the USCCB, renewing the vision or whatever. And now we are happy to say, go do that. And we've just not, I'm sorry, back to when then I became a Catholic and I got involved with Catholic youth ministry. Mm-hmm. And it was eye-opening. I only did it for about 2 years, and it seemed natural because I was in Protestant youth ministry, but I got in there, and the things I learned really quick is, one, the Catholic schools I was supposed to work closely with these two Catholic schools, elementary school and a high school. And it was like, man, you guys are literally inoculating these kids against the faith. You're giving them enough Catholicism to think they know something, and then you're undermining it at every turn. But the other thing I saw is the committee that hired me, everyone in the room they were not everyone, in case they're watching your video, a lot of people in the room had kids that were in trouble, that were leaving the faith, and they thought, well, let's hire a guy to save our kids, which is a huge burden to put on a 22-year-old. Save my kids, yes, because I can't. Yeah, right. So a lot of people that want it is because their kids are leaving and they want someone else to fix the problem for them. And then, all these things are understandable. It's easy to condemn people. It's like, hey, if you're not there, shut up with your internet comments. But then I started realizing the kids that are serious, all of them, their fathers are serious. Mm-hmm. That is the defining characteristic. So I called it the revelation of the curtsy genuflect, because you would see, you got the kid between mom and dad. Mom comes in, genuflex, right? Dad comes in, looks at the altar, maybe a little nod, goes in. And the kid is somewhere in between, right? So he curtsies. He doesn't know if he's with mom or dad. But I can promise you, if he's a boy, he's going to be with what dad does. Yeah. And if dad doesn't take his faith seriously, he's out the door. Mm-hmm. So people say, oh, men aren't leading today. Yeah, they are. They're leading like they always have. They're leading out the door. Right. The boys are going to follow where the men go. If their mind and heart is not converted to Christ, they're going to go where the men go, wherever they are, sports, I don't know. And they're going to find a community. Mm-hmm. Whether it's machismo, I think I'm an internet Viking with tattoos and I lift weights, or I'm part of the gay pride club in my college. Mm-hmm. I'm going to find a community of men that I think are doing what men should do. And so anyway, yeah.
So you guys got you guys got a magazine and a book to go with it when you join, or?
Yeah. So here's the book. I mean, essentially, if we're going to be men, we're going to be vir, right? Latin vir is to be a man is to be virtuous. To be virtuous is to be a man. So we have a book that is essentially going through. It's just a collection of quotes, catechism, scripture passages, saint quotes about these virtues, and we look at. Let's see. So here's justice. That's the baptism. So the lesson might be justice ensures we do no man harm. Words can cause immense harm. Therefore, the just man does not do damage with his words. Justice is a virtue that accepts what is right and wrong. Right and wrong are not decided on whims or emotions. Therefore, the just man accepts what is right. Mm-hmm. So it's just little things. The just man is religious. One big thing we try to teach is that religion is a virtue of justice, right? So then there's faith, but we just go through the 3 theological virtues, the 4 cardinal virtues, and then you essentially every week are given a challenge that the men. By the way, it's not the men up there soapboxing. They're saying this is what we do as men. We as Catholic men, we do things like prepare for Mass, receive communion worthily, pray the Rosary, examine our conscience, go to confession. So it's Catholicism. We haven't invented anything. It just provides the framework for that to happen in.
Remember back out when I was in Denver, Father Nolan had a great one of wanting to get all the men to learn how to serve the Mass.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Then they all share that experience together, and it's unique only to the men, right? Hold on one second, Steve. Speaking of boys, are y'all in trouble?
No.
Then why are you in here? They're not getting here now.
When?
Boys, I'm going to publicly whip you on this giant YouTube channel. They're coming late. We're doing an interview. Get out of here.
Show everybody what sparing the rod means.
That's right. So we live on a farm. My office is outside of the house, but then sometimes they're out wandering. I don't want to be cliche here, but look at these boys. They're just sitting here. Look what they left. Look at that. Yeah. All that's from it. That's a airsoft gun, swords, a blanket. That's why I can't let them in here. The half-eaten apple that I had to pay for. Give me some justice. Speaking of justice. So anyway, to the magazine, honestly, Fraternus is an involved apostolate. A lot of people, hey, I'm happy if you get on board with our philosophy, but it takes a lot of work to get one started. It's not like you just pay your money and we send you some books. And it is a lot of work because we kind of made the choice of going quality over quantity. And a lot of people most people call us, they've got a kid that's in trouble and they want a quick fix. And say, I'm sorry, you can't, I don't have the 3 easy steps ebook for you. But what we did do is, if you think about Fraternus, though, you poke holes in it. We've entrusted the solution to the problem. Meaning, if we're saying boys are not becoming men because men are poorly formed, then so now you're entrusting all the boys to the men. It's kind of a conflict, right? Uh-huh. Obviously, you have to recognize where a deficit, where we have a need. So most of what we do as an organization is to see about the formation of these men. And a lot of men, they're good, solid, just red-blooded American men that want to do what's right, and they recognize I need some formation. So one of the things we have that I'm excited about that anyone, you don't have to be a part of Fraternus, is just we have a magazine, Sword and Spade magazine here. It's quarterly, and the idea behind it is the church, and this is where I kind of see a lot of my unique experience. I'm glad to have, because I have 2 people in mind. I love the rich intellectual tradition of the church, of the Western civilization. It's magnificent. It's coherent. It's life-changing. I mean, the teaching on the virtues and all that it's amazing. And the artistic heritage, cultural heritage of the church is amazing. And then you have the wisdom of, let's just say the wisdom of the farmer, the wisdom of men that work with the world itself and the material world and relationships and just the stuff of real life experience has a lot of wisdom to it too. And those 2 worlds are completely separated. So, Peter Marin used to say, every working man a scholar and every scholar a working man. That to be truly formed, you've got to know how to work as a man. I'm sorry. You got to know how to work. And that's more than just these screens, right? We need, we need work. We need labor. Yeah, because there's something about and this is in the book and the program and stuff, and this is why we also have an apostolate, St. Joseph's Farm, our farm. We have retreats here with college students and father-son groups and stuff, which is by uploading our entire existence. That's how we lost our rite of passage. In the West, our rites of passage will work. So we lost that because our work is now totally uploaded. I mean, you and I, we have to recognize that we're both on screens right now talking. And I just had to send my sons away from my work, right?
Yeah.
They were just in here. If I was farming, son, hold this. Right. Totally different, which is why we live. But Sword and Spade is trying to kind of unite those two worlds, the average working man and the rich intellectual tradition of the church, mostly making the rich intellectual tradition available to the working man. But we also get a lot of priests and college professors that really appreciate the perspective that we're trying to strike of the wisdom that these men have as fathers, so that we're not just having experts preach down to fathers, telling them what they should do without any experience or knowledge of what it actually takes to run a household. So the swordandspade.com, you can subscribe. So we have a quarterly magazine, and we also kind of a byproduct of it's like, well, why not just publish it online? Why go through all the work of paper? And it's because overwhelmingly the biggest problem men have not being formed intellectually or having vices is our screens, our devices. That in order, the message is the medium, and you need the medium of the written word to really understand the heritage of the church. We can't, I'm sorry, at this point, Western civilization was essentially saved at the fall of Rome because monks kept books around, right? So you need to read good stuff. You need to have the habit. I don't care if you're not a good reader or you're not a habit of reading. You need to read. Everyone, every day, you need to be reading. So one is to have a magazine so that these things are off the screen, because even reading it in a magazine, go ahead, tell me, how many articles did you read last week? And give me a quick summary of all of them. You can't do it. But when you read something on a page, it does stick a lot better. Yeah. So we have the magazine, but we also have, along with it, if you're like the brother level subscriber, we send books out 3 times a year and book studies and such. So the one we're sending out, this shop class is Soulcraft. So we're not just sending out Catholic Catechism and Lives of the Saints. This is a non-Catholic author, but super well written. His point is about, the dignity of manual labor. We're sending this out during Corona craziness because, a lot of people are stuck at home. And if we were, this guy's a motorcycle mechanic and a philosopher. If you're stuck at home, I mean, for us, we've got a farm. We're not stuck.
We're scared of germs now.
Yeah. So if we were able to do things, so as I've been saying, it's not that during the Corona crazy, we don't have anything to do. It's that we don't know how to do anything.
Right.
I mean, if we had some, we don't know how to do anything. Yeah. So anyway, that's why we're sending that book out. But that apostolate, it's kind of separate from Fraternus, but it started just internally for our own men that we have a lack of formation. I mean, we have a generational problem of coming up on 2 generations of some of the worst formed Catholics of all time. Not just a lack of formation, but a deformation. So
like
we need to read
the books instead of reading from the screen, because you can read from a screen, but it'd be easier if I just had all these books on a screen and I wouldn't have to put boxes in it and haul it off, but you can still smell the pages, kind of like smelling an old baseball glove.
Hold on one second. Yeah. So hold on. Stand by, Steve.
We're standing by.
This is live, people. Hold on.
He's gathering books right now.
Here it is. What?
I was just telling everyone what he was doing.
Don't edit that out.
No,
don't edit that.
I just told people he's grabbing books.
So I was reading 2 books at the same time that were fascinating. One is this one, The Love of Learning and the Desire for God. And it's basically a study of monastic culture.
Okay.
And it was fascinating how much like, for example, we think about everyone before us as being illiterate idiots, but how much the monastic culture shaped after the fall of Rome, medieval Europe, the High Middle Ages. how much, especially Benedictine life and monastic life shaped. And it's basically, you can't be illiterate and be a monk. Everyone's got to learn. Now, I'm sure there's cases where they're illiterate, but to pray the office, to pray the mass, to meditate, to Lectio Divina, and that how much that shaped the Western tradition, the written word, cannot be underestimated. So he basically says monastic life is literary life, right? It's reading. It makes sense. I mean, people are like, oh, there's lots of ways to communicate, but it's the word that's, that cuts like a two-edged sword. Right? And I know theologically we're speaking about Scripture and Christ and all that, but it makes sense anyway. But at the same time, I was reading this one, The Shallows.
Yes.
Nicholas Carr, What We're Doing to Our Brain. I was reading these at the same time. And in this book was saying this habit was not natural. They had to develop within themselves and culturally this habit of reading. And that really wildly shaped Christian culture. And this book goes through how our natural, more primitive state is on like looking for predators, looking for food. It's like scattered. And that civilization was able to rise because we learned how to focus on thought, right? And how the internet causes us to revert back to scrolling. Well, that link looks interesting, and now I'm going to, and like all over the place. So that it's not just that there's information that we can either read on a screen or a book. Like, oh, it's aesthetically pleasing to read a book, and I look smart doing it. It's that it literally does something different to your mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think there's
your brain physically changes to be able to process the data of a screen. Whereas if you read, just give yourself a chance, 30 minutes every night before checking in on how many people died of coronavirus or why the Pope did something crazy or dumb and you don't like it. Just 30 minutes of reading a book.
Yeah.
It'll change your life. So anyway, that's a big part of Sword and Spade. The title comes from yes, we need the sword for defense and defending the faith. I get it, but that rah man sword stuff gets kind of old. But Deus agricola est. Deus meus agricola est. My father is a farmer. Jesus said. We also it's often translated as a vine dresser, but it's a farmer. Agricola est. And the spade is the work of the farmer. That we can't just be defending and get mad all the time. We got to get to the work of building the place where we are, right? Because we've lost culture. We've got to build it.
Got to have something to defend.
And that's organic. Rebuilding the faith. You can't build culture. It's like building a tree. Right? You can't build a tree. You've got to nurture and grow. That's why the farmer is the better analogy than the builder. Go build a tree. Go ahead. Go build one in your backyard. And that's just like building. All these websites, rebuilding Catholic culture. With a website? Is that a joke? Sorry. I'm sorry, I'm rambling now, Steve.
No, you're good. You're good. No, that was good. So how can anybody get that at your parish? Get that at their parish? Get Fraternus?
Fraternus, you can just go to fraternus.com and start the process. The ingredients that make Fraternus work is, do you have a leader? Like a man, and do you have a group of men? My own parish doesn't have Fraternus. And I think because there's not a group of men that are willing to say, we're going to do this together. There's just some disagreement. So we'll probably be going to Prince of Peace when my sons are old enough. But you need a body of men that'll say, yeah, we're going to do this. You're going to need a priest that's supportive, and you're going to, and you need a place to meet. Now that sounds simple, but it's hard to.
If it was that simple, you'd have that at your parish. With you.
Yeah. It'd be everywhere. I mean, a lot of people say, "Why isn't Fraternus everywhere?" Everyone agrees with the mission. No one disagrees with the apostolate. But you either have. So the first problem is unwilling men, and it's that Cardinal Sarah. He's the one that's railing on us Westerners for this. We've taken up modernism's individuality. We refuse to depend on one another. To actually say that we're brothers and we need each other, and I need help with my kids. We're unwilling to say that, and even the tradies, and that's where they're modernists still. They're radical individualists. But you're cut off from the body. You dead. That's called hell. Anyway, and then the second biggest roadblock is really the priests. I mean, everything from and there is a girls program that's like the equivalent called Fidelis. But a lot of priests don't like the idea of men getting in a room with their sons and teaching them. They think that it's an ideological thing. I mean, so honestly, it's better for us not to be in that parish anyway. For the tradies out there, I will say the content follows along the Novus Ordo calendar. I've been exclusively going to the Latin Mass for over a decade before it was cool and on the internet with Sense and Fidel. But
I'll get you
just
a t-shirt with that.
Before it was cool. I'm so ancient, 10 years. But I will say what I like about Fraternus is in a lot of communities, St. Anne's, Prince of Peace, Birmingham, that it's really the only place where the men of the two churches, the Novus Ordo and the Latin Mass, they actually come together and they're able to say, I want to learn virtues and I want my sons to be Catholic, and it's a good place for that. But that'll probably generate some comments below.
Yeah, there'll always be somebody to hate the.
Come at me, bro. Come on. Yeah.
I'll include his email address underneath if anybody wants to say hate mail. Send it to Jason Craig. I'll put all the links underneath, and if anybody wants to contact about subscriptions, how to get at the parish, invite Jason over to talk to the parish about this, whatever.
If you want to do Fraternus, big commitment, right? You're in it for a long haul. It's a big apostolate. It's kind of a lifetime. If you want to get the principles of it, you can do leavingboyhoodbehind.com. That's just like a study, one and done. Go through it, and then because I tell you, you don't have to have Fraternus. Fraternus is it's the philosophy that's got to be right.
Yeah.
The book, you can just get the book, and then but if you want to stay connected and just have some of the good formation that gets put out, the magazine is there. And if you want to come on a farm retreat and split some wood and cook a pig, which is all we do.
Show them the coffee mug.
Well, we have Once Upon a Cow Micro Dairy. We operate the smallest dairy in North Carolina, but it's a grade A dairy.
And they're in these times when you got all these big, gigantic plants dumping milk out. Help your local guy, Jason.
Yeah, who's crazy now with all my cows out in the country? But we do it. We have a stjosephsfarm.com. That's basically on-farm retreats. And the main thing, it's funny. The main thing we do through the weekend is kill a pig and eat it, which sounds simple, but there's nothing. If you're in a modern Malays and you got a teenage son that's kind of, there's nothing like putting a bullet in a pig's forehead to, now we're not callous. I actually read a poem about thankfulness for the pig, and farmers are not callous, but there is something about seeing something die that makes you realize the order of the universe.
There was a movie called Leap Year. It's about this Irish guy. This girl goes over and she wants to propose to her boyfriend. Anyway, she gets hooked up with this Irish guy, and that's taking her to Dublin. And on the way, they stop at this farm, and she's hungry, so he was going to make some a chicken salad. And he goes in the back and grabs the chicken and snaps his neck, and she goes, "Ooh!" He goes, "Where do you think chickens come from?"
So. We did this. The leavingboyhoodbehind.com that show was filmed and produced by EWTN. One of their good producers down there. Anyway, they filmed the whole killing of this pig. That's kind of like in the background of the show the whole time, and so they had to do it delicately because they want to show what we're doing without guts. And they said they got all kinds of hate mail about. And I don't know if this is a joke, if this is true, but someone said that a lady was like, "Why'd you have to kill a pig? You could have gone to the store to get some pork." But anyway, so yeah, on the retreats, we kill pigs, and then we basically smoke it all day, and we cut the wood. Fathers and sons cut the wood, split the wood, and keep the wood cooking so that the pig, doesn't go bad. And we have a big old feast, and yeah, that's fun stuff too.
Well, Jason, I gotta run, but hey, man, appreciate you coming on, and send me the links that have the correct links. So I'll put them underneath for everybody to click on to go to the website and magazine, book, etc.
Send your hate mail to Steve.
I can forward it. Talk to you later, buddy.
I can block you. All right, bye, Steve.